14 of the last 16 over at the juvenile court. I have the courtroom that covers the Austin area, so all kids that are arrested in the 15th district come in my courtroom.
So they got it kind of broken down by different...
That's the way juvenile court is set up. All children from a particular geographical area go into the same courtroom.
Right. That's why when I was talking to you offline, I was talking about an initiative they had in the Lawndale area because I guess back then they found that the numbers were very high in that particular area. And I imagine yours is kind of on overload too.
This is true. And so we've started one in Austin. It's the Austin Juvenile Justice Pilot Program. And it's because I was beginning to see 11 and 12-year-olds show up in my courtroom every once in a while, even a 10-year-old, drug cases. And it's like we have to find some other way to deal with these kids. You can't have 11 and 12-year-old kids coming through the juvenile court system. And a lot of times for things like soliciting drugs, standing on the corner yelling rocks or blow or weed, you know, and the police say they hear them soliciting, and so they arrest them, and you know.
And these are juveniles as young as 10 years old.
As young as, some of them are young as 10 years old.
Right.
So we're going to see if we can't, well, it's in the process already, and we're just trying to fine-tune it now, get those kids diverted out of juvenile court, get the faith-based community involved, community service providers, and provide services to those kids, see if we can't get those children redirected away from activities that are resulting in, you know, them dropping out of school, winding up in gangs, getting hurt, dying far too young,
So you know that anything you can do to divert them away from criminal activities by linking them to supportive services, traditionally that kind of reminds me back in the last 1900s when, long before we had a juvenile justice court system, we had child protection, which we still have, but the whole thing was about trying to protect the child and do things in the best interest of the child, and it evolved into this criminal
and you see, well,
system.
There was a time when the family and the neighborhood did that. When I was growing up, there was Miss Jones down on the corner, and if Miss Jones saw Marianne doing something, I would hear Candy Jones saying, "Marianne, come here." And so I got it from Miss Jones before my mother got home, and then as soon as my mother hit the block, Miss Jones told my mother what it is that she had seen Marianne doing, what she did to Marianne, and then my mother finished administering the corrective action. So we don't have as much of that going on anymore. So we still have to find a way to once again get the community involved in the rearing of the children, and it can be done through these community organizations.
Well, we really don't have any choice, because in talking to you, we understand that we have to be very careful about saying, well, what the parents should do, because that's based on our own personal experience, just like you just explained about what would happen in the neighborhood. Well, these people that are responsible for these children are what in educational systems, some people that I work with call adult children, which means they're not interested in the health, interest, rights, and needs of their children like our parents were. So sometimes we have to lower our expectations and understand these people aren't there to do.
And it's not even sometimes so much that they aren't interested, it's that you can't teach what you don't know. So I think that we are dealing with probably the third generation of young people who had children when they were babies. You know, we have 13, 14, 15-year-olds having children. Well, they were an empty vessel when they got pregnant and had the baby. So an empty vessel doesn't have anything to pour into its new vessel. And then your vessel grows up, and at 13, they get pregnant and have a baby. So now you are a late 20, early 30-something-year-old grandmother. You didn't have anything to give your child.
13, the mother's 26 and the grandmother's 39. And if you put another 13 on top of that,
your great-grandmother is in the 50s.
52. We don't even have a great-grandmother over 60.
And
you
I've
remember
seen
back
that,
in the day, they would be in their 70s and 80s.
We don't have big mamas anymore.
What happened to Big Mama?
Big Mama's gone.
So it's very complex, but I think that our viewers, you particularly need to know that the juvenile justice court system and some of the innovative things, and I want you to repeat that for someone that may have missed that, linking the children to the appropriate social services and support groups in the community, so the children, to cut down on the recidivism rate. And then you said they're so young.
Yes, so that's what we're supposed to do. We in the juvenile court, we are supposed to be led by something called balanced and restorative justice,
right.
which simply means, number one, obviously, yes, you're going to hold that kid responsible for what it is that the kid did, but you also have to see if you cannot restore the victim to where they were before they encountered the child, and then you have to do something to help that child become rehabilitated.
Right.
You know, a lot of times, particularly when you're talking about 12 and 13-year-olds, they are clueless about how their actions affect other people.
Right.
And so part of the process is making them understand how you hurt not only yourself, but the victim and the community.
Now, is that like the victim impact panels? They still conduct
Correct.
those over there?
Yes, we still do victim impact panels, and it's all about having people who have been the victims of crime come in and let young people have a much greater understanding about how what you did affected me.
Right.
Yes.
You know, they think children think just vandalizing a garage and putting graffiti on it. But when they come in and sit down at that table downstairs over at the juvenile detention or the courthouse and listen to these people say how they were traumatized just by something simply as graffiti or going into the rifling through the garage or whatever.
That, and even with something like drugs, you know, you will hear young people say all the time, well, I don't care nothing about people who use drugs. You know, what's the problem? They want to use them, I want to sell it to them. But you have to get them to understand that it is so much more involved in that whole process. There are other people there in the community that your actions affect. For example, the property owner. You stand on the corner outside that person's house day in and day out selling drugs.
Mm-hmm.
They now have property that becomes less valuable,
right,
because if they wanted to sell it, they can't find anybody who wants to buy it because you're standing out there on the corner all day and all night selling drugs.
Right.
Then you've got the parent, you know, who is afraid to let their child come outside and play because they are afraid of the violence that goes along with that sale of drugs.
Right.
And you got the senior citizen who is afraid to come outside because they are afraid of what happens. And then you got bullets flying through windows and into people's houses. So you have to get them to see that it's not simply you and the people who want to use the drugs. You got people kicking in people's doors, stealing people's possessions in order to get money to buy the drugs that you want to sell. So,
right.
And kids don't always take all of that into consideration. So our job is to make sure that they understand, you know, you're not operating in a vacuum. What you do hurts other people.
You had told me on Thursdays is one of the days that the probation department submits reports. And what I found, it was really intriguing and it was enlightening also when you share, what do you, if there's going to be a good report submitted to you on a young person and they're doing fairly well in school, you said you don't require what did you tell me?
I don't require the probation officer to bring that child in court. If the kid is doing everything that the kid is supposed to do, it is better for that child to be in school. Do not take a kid out of school to bring him before Judge Jackson so that you can give Judge Jackson a report that says this kid is doing everything that this kid is supposed to do on probation. You fill out a written report, we read that written report, and we give you a new court date for that kid. Now, if there's a problem, the kid needs to be in court. But if the kid is doing everything we're asking the kid to do, it's more important for that kid to be in school.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but I know you've had some cases where Johnny's not compliant, he's not going to school, there's something going on, and it was something real simple that came up that you did an intervention by having the child come before the bench and you spoke to him and only to find that it was something real simple. I've heard a case where something real simple, you may or may not be able to think of something right now on the spot, but sometimes things that we overlook something as simple as it was a child that couldn't get to school on time, and the probation officer went to the house only to find there wasn't even an alarm clock in the house.
This is true. You have those situations. So, the kid has no ability, there's no clocks in the house.
Yeah, so the child is being blamed for being tardy or late to school or being truant.
Or truly, the parent, the legal guardian, doesn't have the funds to get the kid to school. And it used to be that at juvenile court, we had bus cards available to give to kids who, needed that assistance. But as the budgets have been cut back, the court has not been immune to that. So we've lost a lot of the services that we were able to provide to young people to help them through some of those situations.
Now, what about the drug and alcohol assessments? Is that still being done with some of the youth, adolescents?
Yes, not as much as we used to, but we also have a juvenile court drug treatment program, and I have the drug treatment program in my courtroom as well. And so the vast majority of young people coming through juvenile court these days test positive for the presence of at least marijuana, and increasingly we're seeing young people testing positive for other drugs too, PCP, the date rape drug, right on the tip of my tongue.
Now, let me ask you another quick question. Would us having Rolling Meadows and Skokie and Bridgeview and Markham for the adult, all the children in Cook County have to come over to Hamilton?
Oh, no. We have the drug treatment program for the kids in the city.
Okay.
And when it first started, all of the kids came through my courtroom. We have some judges now that hold on to their kids, but there's still quite a few judges that transfer their case from their courtroom to Judge Jackson's courtroom.
We're running out of time, and let me ask you, and I asked other judges that have preceded you that been reelected to the bench, and we want to know the people on the west side and Oak Forest in that area that you're in the 7th Subcircuit. So they should look for 175 on the ballot.
175.
And can you come back from time to time to educate our viewers after you return to the bench?
I would love to.
Thank you so much. Thank you for
so
coming.
much. Thank you.